Welcome to today's video on the strategic use of surplus cash flow once your core financial safeguards are on autopilot. We will explore how to refine your emergency fund, master sinking funds for predictable big expenses, and then redirect extra cash into growth-oriented investments. By the end, you'll have a practical playbook for balancing ultra security, planned living, and long-term wealth creation. Let's get started. Before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Everyone's situation is different, so consider consulting a qualified professional who can tailor recommendations to your needs. With that in mind, let's proceed. Here's our roadmap. First, we'll examine why unallocated surplus cash is a lost opportunity. Next, we'll challenge the emergency fund minimum in light of today's volatility. Then, we'll build out sinking funds so planned expenses don't become emergencies. After that, we'll automate allocations to reduce friction. Finally, we'll prioritize investment growth for long-term independence. Along the way, there will be quick quizzes to reinforce learning. Let's begin with the key question. Once retirement contributions, health savings, and manageable debt payments are automated, the key question emerges. Where should every extra dollar go? Conceptually, surplus cash can flow to your emergency fund for ultra security, to sinking funds for planned living, or to investments for wealth growth. The art is sequencing and balancing these, not letting cash pile up idly. With that framing, let's revisit the foundation. Your starting point is a set of automated safeguards. Retirement accounts should be funded on a schedule, ideally with employer match captured. Health savings account contributions should be aligned with expected medical costs if you have an eligible plan. Debt should be manageable, with on-time, automated payments preventing late fees and stress. Finally, you should have a baseline emergency fund already established. With those foundations in place, we can refine your cash strategy. Conventional advice suggests 3 to 6 months of expenses for an emergency fund. However, in volatile job markets, stretching towards 6 to 12 months provides more resilience. Treat this account as a break-glass reserve for genuine emergencies, such as job loss or major medical issues. Keep it in a high-yield savings account for liquidity and safety, not for returns. Review your EF target quarterly as your risk profile changes. Now that the foundation is stronger, let's separate predictable big-ticket expenses from true emergencies. This mind map shows an emergency fund ladder. Level 1 provides 3 to 4 months of expenses for initial resilience. Level 2 reaches 6 months, a common standard. Level 3 pushes to 9 to 12 months for those facing higher volatility, a single-income household, or specialized employment that could take longer to replace. It also indicates where to store the fund, namely in high-yield savings accounts with appropriate deposit insurance, and highlights the importance of quarterly reassessment based on job stability, number of dependents, and fixed living costs. Next, we'll ensure you don't accidentally use this fund for predictable expenses. Quiz time. Which statement best captures the role of the emergency fund in this strategy? Option A suggests using it for planned purchases. Option B frames it as a break-glass reserve sized to 6 to 12 months in volatile markets. Option C suggests taking on risk for yield. And Option D suggests letting surplus pile in checking. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is the break-glass-only reserve, sized towards 6 to 12 months in volatile markets. This fund is not for planned purchases and should not take investment risk. It exists to protect your stability when unexpected events occur. Now let's make sure planned expenses have their own home so the emergency fund stays intact. Sinking funds prevent predictable expenses from invading your emergency fund. Set up separate buckets for medium-term, inevitable costs, such as a car replacement, roof repair, appliances, travel, and medical expenses that fall outside your HSA. Automate small transfers each pay period into each bucket so they quietly grow. When the expense arrives, you pay cash, avoiding the need for high-interest debt. This approach aligns your budget with your real-life goals and values. To help you choose categories, let's look at a quick reference table. This table offers sample targets and horizons for common sinking funds. Car replacement might be $12,000 to $25,000 over 2 to 5 years. Roof or major home repairs could require $5,000 to $20,000 with a 1 to 7 year horizon. Appliances and technology replacements often need $1,000 to $4,000 over 1 to 3 years. Travel could be $2,000 to $6,000 over 6 to 18 months. Medical deductibles should be funded over a 12-month period to ensure you can cover the annual maximums. All of these are best kept in high-yield savings to maintain liquidity and certainty. Now let's automate your entire cash flow so these buckets fill without constant attention. Choose a strict payday order. First, top up the emergency fund until your target is reached. Second, fund your sinking categories. Third, invest the remainder. Set automatic transfers to the emergency fund and keep them running until your months of expenses target is met. Create sub-accounts for each sinking fund and automate contributions weekly or bi-weekly. Schedule investments on paydays to dollar cost average and reduce timing risk. Finally, review quarterly to adjust targets and transfers as your situation evolves. With automation in place, let's redirect surplus cash toward growth. Once your emergency fund and sinking funds are properly established, redirect surplus cash away from idle accumulation. Prioritize tax-advantaged accounts, such as your employer plan, IRAs, and HSA if eligible. After those are maxed, invest additional funds in a taxable brokerage account, emphasizing low-cost, broadly diversified index funds. Automate these contributions and adhere to a clear asset allocation that matches your risk tolerance and time horizon. This shift ensures inflation does not silently erode your purchasing power. To visualize the journey, let's look at a phased plan. This timeline illustrates a practical one-year arc. In the first quarter, you top up the emergency fund to 6 months. In the second quarter, you open sinking fund sub-accounts and automate deposits. In the third quarter, you prioritize maximizing tax-advantaged retirement and health accounts while locking in automated investments. In the fourth quarter, you send overflow to a taxable brokerage and conduct an annual review and rebalance. Next, a quick quiz to reinforce the distinctions between accounts. Here's your next quiz. What should you generally do with surplus cash after your emergency fund and sinking funds are established and on track? Option 1 suggests letting it sit in checking. Option 2 recommends increasing discretionary spending. Option 3 prioritizes investing in tax-advantaged accounts and then taxable brokerage. And Option 4 moves it to a lower-yield savings account. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is to prioritize investing in tax-advantaged accounts first and then use a taxable brokerage for the remainder. This approach maximizes compounding and tax efficiency while ensuring idle cash does not lose value to inflation. Let's briefly compare holding excess cash versus investing. On the left, cash provides immediate liquidity and has no market volatility, which is ideal for emergency funds and short-term sinking funds. However, cash suffers from inflation drag and creates an opportunity cost when it sits idle. On the right, investing offers higher long-term return potential and the benefit of compounding, but it comes with volatility and the possibility of drawdowns. Therefore, investing is best suited for medium to long-term goals where time can smooth out market fluctuations. Now let's lock in the key takeaways. Here are your key takeaways. First, in volatile environments, consider building your emergency fund to 6 to 12 months of expenses. Second, create separate sinking funds, so predictable expenses do not drain your emergency fund and so you can pay cash. Third, automate transfers and investments to minimize friction and human error. Fourth, maximize tax-advantaged accounts and then invest overflow in a taxable account. Finally, review quarterly and rebalance annually to keep your plan aligned with your goals. Let's wrap with a concise action plan. Over the next 90 days, first audit your emergency fund against your target and initiate automatic transfers to fill the gap. Next, open sinking sub-accounts and assign specific monthly contributions to each category. Then, raise contributions to your retirement accounts and HSA as appropriate. Finally, open or fund a taxable brokerage account and automate dollar cost averaging. With this cadence, you will convert surplus cash into a balanced engine of security, planned spending, and growth. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, please like the video, share it with someone who could benefit, and subscribe for more content. I'd love to hear your questions and your own 90-day plan in the comments. See you in the next one.